All right, Mark, I see that it's being broadcasted live. Probably unlisted, right?
Okay. So now I can just close out the browser, right? Close out the X out.
Yes, Mark. Yes.
So I'm gonna go down here.
Prashant,
Yes, Bhante.
do you have to admit people to the room?
Oh, already, I think Mark admitted it.
Only one person?
Yeah. I did. That's one.
So Bhante, Veronica is going to translate in French for her parents today.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So that's yeah.
Oh, by the way, Veronica, Merry Christmas. Happy holidays.
Thank you. You too.
Tell that to your parents also from me.
Yeah. Tu viens? Ça, c'est 21 en direct. Je peux dire bonjour. That's my dad.
Hello,
Ça va?
ça va et vous? Merci.
Tu peux t'asseoir, je vais traduire le coup.
D'accord.
Hi, Bhante.
Hello, everybody. We'll wait a couple more minutes for other people to get online. For those of you who are here on the in-house retreat, and while I'm giving the Dhamma talk, you can still practice your meditation in kind of a more general way by just keep coming back to feel your body. Remember that you're sitting, but you can still listen to the talk and still do that in between. It's not like real focused concentration like you're doing in meditation, but just a more general, open sense or do some gentle 3-part breathing, or deep, slow breathing. So to start, I'm going to chant the Namo Tassa 3 times. You can just listen to that and just let it help center your mind. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. So friends, for those of you who are tuning in over the airwaves, over the Zoom, I welcome you to this year-end retreat. So we have a few people here on our in-house retreat who are, we began last night, but today is the first sort of a long Dhamma talk. And because it's the sort of the year end and reflecting on the year end, also I want to kind of start at the beginning of the Dhamma practice. And by we're all practicing Dhamma, and when people meditate, they say, I'm practicing Dhamma. But what really does that mean? And so the word Dhamma has many different meanings, but the obvious common meaning is, at least for Buddhists, the practice of the Buddha's teaching, which includes the practice of the Noble Eightfold Path, which, of course, meditation forms one of the most important aspects of the practice of Dhamma. And learning how to live, think, and meditate, that will help us to unravel the complex, intricate web of thoughts and emotions that's tangled up and intertwined with the external world. And in fact, somebody came and asked the Buddha, he asked him, there's this outer tangle and the inner tangle. This world is entangled in a tangle. So I asked Master Gotama, who succeeds in disentangling this tangle? And that's when the Buddha then explained the process of Sila, Samadhi, and Panya, or the Noble Eightfold Path. And actually, the whole Visuddhimagga, another important Theravada text, is written specifically to answer that question. But now, most of you know the Buddha's teaching is outlined in what the Buddha called the Four Noble Truths. And he sort of laid it out as this sort of hypothesis as to, the nature of our conditioned existence. And so the Four Noble Truths, he talked about the nature of our conditioned life is one of difficult, and is born up with suffering, disease, old age, and death, not getting what one wants, getting what one doesn't want, and basically being dissatisfied, not being satisfied with the present moment, always wanting something else, always wanting to do something. And, they call us human beings, but actually most people are human doings, because they're always doing something, doing. Even in sleep, their mind goes on doing things, dreaming, and so on. And most people have never experienced what we might call real being, or from the Dhamma point of view, true being. That means being in the present moment without wanting to do something. So anyway, the Buddha described this condition of our conditioned life as one of this that's tied up with a lot of problems and suffering. Or basically, he called it the truth of suffering, that suffering exists. And then he went on to say, then what is the cause of the suffering? So the second of these noble truths is the cause of suffering is basically ignorance and not understanding the truth about the world, specifically not understanding the truth about our mind and what basically creates and drives the world of, conditioned existence. And so basically it's ignorance, and then the craving and the aversion that arises because of ignorance, because of not understanding the truth about the mind. We've allowed our mind to look outside of ourself for happiness and get enmeshed in the law of karma and tangled up with craving sensual pleasures and avoiding pain. And basically the mind is caught between seeking pleasure and avoiding pain, which is virtually a dead-end street, or it's a never-ending process, because the desires will never be satisfied. And pain is always going to be coming as a part of our life. So he simply stated that this is how it is. But he said the good news is that there can be an end to these problems. There can be an end to suffering. Now, how would you put an end to the suffering? By removing the cause, naturally. Everything that arises, from a cause. So the end of suffering is also a real, very real possibility. And then how to arrive at the end of suffering. And that's when he taught the Noble Eightfold Path, the 8 steps to overcoming ignorance and transcending the web of karma to experience liberation. Now, I know that sounds like it's very complex or theoretical, but I'll try to maybe simplify it a bit. So anyway, the essence of the Buddhist teaching is about suffering and the removing of the causes of suffering to experience the end of suffering, which the Buddha happened to call Nibbana, but it's better just to leave it as the end of suffering. Because, what more do people want, right? I mean, for most people, the drive of every living being is to, live in a state of peace and happiness without being bothered by, various forms of suffering, right? I mean, most people would like to live free from sickness or free from diseases or free from getting old and losing your teeth and all kind of other problems, wouldn't they? They would like to, live in some perpetual state of just ease and well-being. Now, it should be possible, but the people don't know how it works. So anyway, the drive of every living being is to, live in happiness and freedom from danger and pain. I think no one would probably argue this point. Now take even a tiny little ant, a tiny little ant crawling along the ground. They're also searching for happiness. Because if you put your finger down in front of an ant, it will stop and maybe turn around or go back or go around. And why is that? Because it senses some danger there. I mean, look, a tiny little ant compared to our finger, right? It would be like us standing at the base of the World Trade Center. And if that thing came all of a sudden down in front of us, wouldn't we be scared too, right? Because we have that fear of death or fear of pain. So, and that's, whenever we hear, a bolt of lightning, or we, hear about a hurricane coming or a tornado, people flee and try to find shelter because, to get away from this fear of pain or death. So it's something, that kind of fear and the desire for happiness is the basis of all living beings. Even something as tiny as a little ant, there's something very conscious there. There's something alive in that tiny little ant, something very conscious. And again, it's that consciousness for wanting to live in peace and comfort and to avoid pain and death. And so we can ask a lot of people out in the world, what's their idea of happiness? And they might tell us all kinds of things. Oh, my idea of happiness is that, I will avoid getting COVID, for example, or now Omicron, and or that nobody in my family acquires any serious diseases, or I don't lose all my wealth and live long. So people have these basic desires or ideas of what happiness means to them. Some people might say, well, if I just could win a lottery and then I'd have all the money in the world, and I could just fulfill all of my desires. But we can see these stories of people who won lotteries and within 6 months they're penniless because they've ill-spent or wasted that fortune. So anyway, I'm just saying that to kind of give a broader outlook on the meaning of suffering and happiness. So the meaning of happiness for different people means different things. And the Buddha also had this question. And the Buddha was, inquiring about the nature of life. He was also pondering, what is the nature of suffering? What is, why do we die? Why do we have to get sick and have to get diseases and have to have all these other problems? And he was thinking about it in a very deep way. And then he said, because we were born in the first place, because of birth, now we're subject to all of these things. Now that sounds a little bit cryptic, and you might think it sounds a little bit negative, but you really have to understand kind of from the Buddha's perspective what he was talking about. And hopefully during this retreat, in the course of these Dhamma talks, and today we want to explore a little bit more about the teachings of the Dhamma, because it's not an ordinary teaching. That's why you can't find Dhamma in the popular sort of books. And you have to go to special places to find out what the teachings of the Buddha about happiness. Now, as I mentioned, the Buddha taught the Dhamma. And basically the Dhamma refers to, on one level, the laws of nature. So that means the laws that govern sort of the operation of our bodies and mind in this world, and even the laws of nature that govern the world itself, even this earth and the solar system and so on. But specifically, the laws of Dhamma that are connected with happiness and suffering. And one of the basic laws of nature is the law of karma. So karma is a very popular word these days. People are saying, oh, that's my karma, that's your karma, 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 karma. People are using it on the news broadcasters are talking about it, and news programs and other people, and they banter it around. But a lot of times it's a very superficial understanding. But anyway, the law of karma could be summed up similar to the law of gravity. We all know the law of gravity, isn't it? So if you throw something up, it comes down. So in the law of karma, as it pertains to our bodies and mind, if we throw something out of our mouth, like some bad speech, then those words go out into the world and mingle with the body and minds of other beings, and it can come back to us as some type of a result. So the law of karma basically means the law of cause and effect. But basically it has that similar function of the gravity. That whatever you throw up, it comes back to us in one way or another like a boomerang. And if we throw something out of our body, like some negative body language, I'm not going to demonstrate it, but I think people know negative body languages. That also goes out into the world, and if it comes to the wrong particular persons, then it can come back to us as a punch in the face or worse. And even our thoughts are like radio waves. So even our thoughts, if we send our thoughts out in the world, even though people might not hear them, those thought waves are like radio waves, and they can go out and they can be felt by other people's unconscious minds and cause some reaction in them too, that then could come back to us as an equal or opposite reaction. So this comes to another sort of analogy of one of the laws of nature is similar to the Newton's law of nature. Now I know physicists and maybe somebody who's watching this program might disagree with that, but in a general way, like Newton's law of physics, for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. So when we're talking about the law of karma, whatever we put out by our body, speech, and mind could have an equal or opposite reaction. So if we put out hatred, we may get hatred come back to us in equal proportion. If we put out happiness, we may get back pleasant, kind, and pleasant reactions on account of that. And then the same with our body language. If you smile, you're walking down the street, and if you give a nice smile to somebody, you could cause a smile on there. They might smile back, right? I mean, you probably have experienced that. But if you put out a frown or stick your tongue out at somebody or something else, you'll probably get a negative body language back. So in just a simple way, but a very direct way, this is sort of how the law of karma works, again, in terms of our body and mind and the reactions that we get back from the world around us. And so the Buddha classified these actions that bring suffering or bring painful reactions if we put out our thoughts or actions based on selfish greed, I mean strong attachment and greed, sensual craving, or the opposite of anger or hatred, and also of just self-centered, selfish types of thoughts and delusions, deluded thoughts, just spouting all kinds of sort of false views and things like that, that then problems will come back to us as a result of that. So basically, the Buddhist teachings are what are called the roots of suffering are greed, hatred, and delusion. And delusion is basically not understanding the truth, not understanding the truth of what the mind is, how this mind came to be, how it ticks, how it functions, and how it keeps generating our thoughts and speech and actions through the complex web of habits. So it's not understanding that, we've allowed the mind to get caught up into this sort of sticky web of karma. And that means the desire and aversion for the objects of the six senses, basically. Thinking that our happiness depends on what we can see, taste, smell, touch, or hear, or think about. So most people's lives are directly, connected to that. Their whole life depends on what they can see, hear, taste, smell, touch, and think about. And that's true. I mean, we have to do that. That's the way we live in the world. But if you have strong attachment and craving and become addicted to things of the senses, then and become obsessive about them, that's when they lead us to do all kind of unskillful actions, such as killing, stealing, lying, cheating, raping, pillaging, plundering, and probably any type of so-called unskillful or negative actions. Now, people in other religions might call them, the evil actions, although we don't use the term evil in the Dharma language. But so anyway, just basically actions done out of strong attachment and greed, anger and hatred, and self-centered delusion. These are going to bring us, various types of problems and sufferings in our life. And if we put out the opposite of non-greed, non-hatred, or having a heart full of kindness and love for all beings, and not violating those basic moral guidelines, not infringing on the lives of others, then then that suffering and problems will be reduced in our life. So on a very kind of basic, concrete level, the practice of Dhamma basically is about learning how to transform our negative thoughts that bring pain and suffering to more wholesome thoughts that reduce that suffering and that bring the more causes for lightness and happiness into our life. That means basically freedom from remorse, guilt, worry, and fear. Now, if you just think about it, guilt, worry, remorse, and fear over the things that one has done throughout one's life, and then we're projecting that into the future with, fear and worry. Am I going to get caught at this, get caught at that? Somebody's going to find out. And the mind is consumed with a lot of this type of, especially worry and fear, or simply not being satisfied. And that consumes a lot of people's minds, leading to more serious mental states such as depression and psychotic breaks and all kind of mental problems. So again, I'm just trying to establish a kind of a larger picture of what the mind is, and how has become so complex and dominates everybody's life, through not understanding the real truth about it. And so the whole of the Buddhist teachings is about really understanding these basic laws of nature. That means the laws of the body and mind, and how they interact and produce our consciousness and life from that sort of life force. And so basically it comes down to, and the Buddha discovered that we've come down to really not really understanding who we are, and we've become disconnected with ourself, really. And our mind is just basically floating around, just being affected by everything that comes around in the world. Now, another one of these laws of nature is impermanence, that everything is changing. And that means all the elements, contents of our mind are changing, and all of the physical world is changing too. And even modern physics has also come to that conclusion that even material matter is not what we assume it is. It's not essentially really solid and so on, that it's actually always changing into something else. So impermanence is one of the other laws of nature that the Buddha taught about, that the world is constantly changing, and we can't really control it because it's changing according to these laws of nature. But one of the most, and also come back a little bit more to, how did our life begin? And that, our body and mind basically were born together. So at the moment of conception, the physical body, given by your parents, the mother and father, joined together and produced that little fetus. And it has consciousness. Consciousness comes in and sort of powers the development of that young embryo. So the consciousness is sort of the life force, the spark of life that comes in at the moment of conception and helps to develop that body. And basically they were fused together. That one cell organism had a consciousness, and when it divided, that consciousness went into the subsequent cells. Now, bear with me if this sounds too intellectual, but I think any biology book will tell you this. And so for 9 months, this baby went from a one-cell organism to a multi-billion, or now they're saying trillion, cell organism. And consciousness went into every one of those cells. So on that level, every cell of our body has a consciousness, or at least a kind of an awareness. Maybe not consciousness as we know it now, but it had a kind of awareness. Because even a one-cell organism has awareness. We know there's amoebas and other things that are swimming around. Biologists tell us that. They can sense things. So that means there's awareness there. So every cell of our body has awareness. and they're connected in the inner internet. I like to use that term, the inner internet, right? Because everybody's talking about this external internet. But the body has its own internet. And that means the web of all these cells of the body, they're connected. So the cells in your toe know how to talk to the cells in your brain. And the cells in your liver and stomach, they're always sending out signals to other parts of the body saying, hey, something is happening here. Let's, check it out. Let's do something. A foreign disease, bacteria enters the body and triggers off the immune system, sending alarm bells all over. And then the body reacting to that to try to fight it off. And that's being done without we don't ask it to do that, do we? That's inner intelligence. That's natural intelligence. That this body has the natural intelligence that grew itself, basically, right? No one programmed the baby to grow like that. It did it by itself because of causes and conditions. So for 9 months of the womb, basically the mind was fused together with the body, was at one with the body in the present moment. It was just all that tremendous energy of cell division and going on, in that consciousness or that awareness. And it was occurring basically in the present moment. So for 9 months in the womb, and then we were born, and the mind was born together with the body. And it's still fused in the body. So when the young baby comes out, the mind is basically in the present moment. It means it's not thinking of the past or future, and it's just, feeling that intimate connection with all those cellular vibrations of the body, being connected to that internet of the nervous system. Basically, it means the nervous system. And so for the first several months of the baby's life, it's, according to the child developmental psychologists, the baby's mind is in a state of oceanic awareness. That means it's very expanded. It doesn't have the sense of a little I or me in it yet. And no thoughts of the past or future. And it's just all this world now is coming through the senses, sounds, sight, smells, tastes. And it's not discriminating about I don't like this or I like this and I don't like that and so on. Now it may feel some pain. It's an instinctual thing, of course. It may want to draw away from a painful object, but basically it's not really thinking very much. It hasn't developed, likes and dislikes, obvious ones, or various thoughts of the past and the future. So its mind is basically still in the present moment. But then what happens? The parents give the baby a name, little Jose or little Joe or Susie, and then they start calling its name. And all the relatives come over and want to hold the baby and calling its name and going, Gucci, Gucci, goo, and trying to get the baby's attention. And then little by little, a little nucleus of an I starts to coagulate and form within the awareness of that baby. And it gradually loses that oceanic awareness in a state of oneness, present moment, and starts identifying objects. Then you teach it language. This is daddy, this is mommy, this is grandpa. This is the cat, this is the dog. And so you start to then get memory and remember, this kind of thing means this. This kind of thing means this. So, this gradually develops in the baby's mind. Now you might think, why is this monk telling us all these things? Because it's very important to understand how the whole ball of delusions and suffering has arisen. So just please bear with me a little bit longer. Okay, so then the grandmother comes over, the sweet little grandmother comes over with the first chocolate for the baby and gives the baby its first taste of chocolate. And the baby, you might have a smile might come onto his face because it kind of feels that sweet sensation. Might go, ee. So there's a pleasant sensation there, which the baby naturally is, likes. And then maybe the uncle or the grandfather holds the baby too tight and squeezes and causes the baby pain. Now it's going to start to identify the face of that uncle or grandfather as something that brings it pain. And it's going to identify the face of the grandmother as something that brings it pleasure. And so these ideas of pleasure and pain start to develop into the baby's mind. And it starts to hope that the face of the grandmother comes again in the future because it wants to have that pleasurable taste again. And it hopes that the face of the grandfather or uncle doesn't come again because it's associating that with pain. And so this is actually the birth of pleasure and pain, you could say, at least from the psychological point of view, and also the birth of the past and the future. Because now it's seeing everything it experiences in terms of something that brings me pleasure and something that brings pain at different levels. And so as the baby starts to experience more and more things, maybe he touches something hot and gets burned, and so he'll start to have a fear of some hot thing, or maybe the cat comes by and the baby grabs the cat's tail and the cat turns around and scratches, and the baby will have the fear of the cat, and so many other things. So like this way, little by little, as the child grows up getting various experiences, it's starting to categorize the world as these things bring me unpleasant sensations and pain, and to want to avoid them and have fear of them, or these other things bring me pleasure and develop desire and craving for them. And so the mind starts to go outward into the world and starts living for the future. How can I get these objects that bring me pleasure? And how can I avoid these objects in the future that might bring me pain? And so its life gets consumed by this sort of syndrome. It's called the pleasure-pain syndrome. And it gets kind of locked into that. And it gradually loses its connection to the present moment. And the more it looks outside of itself, the more it separates, it disconnects from its base, its home base, which is the body, being centered and grounded in the present moment, where there's no thoughts of the past or future. And all problems basically are the problems of the past and future. Think of any problem that you have and see if it's not connected in some way to the past or future. Probably have a hard time finding something that's not connected to the past or future. Nowadays, the COVID, right? People are worried everywhere they go. People wearing masks, or people vaccinated, and their life is revolving around that. Now, of course, that's a serious concern, no doubt. But I'm just using it as one example of how people's minds get consumed with these type of things. And basically it's about the fear of getting sick and the fear of death. Ultimately, the greatest fear is the fear of death. And it's because it's the fear that they're going to be separated from what they like at the time of death. But basically, so the ego is born shortly after the baby's born. That sense of self and I starts to develop, and it starts to seeing the whole world as me. Everything under the skin is me, and everything outside of the skin is the other. And this self-cherishing I, or this self-protection, begins to develop an armor around itself. Of course, this happens over years and years, as the child grows up and has more experiences. But it gets more solidified in the mind. This what's called ego consciousness or dualistic consciousness. And they've lost touch with their body. And they become separated, disconnected from the body, which was their real true home, and which is the connection to the present moment, that natural present moment awareness. And it's not that we've lost that connection with the present moment awareness, but it's been layered over and over and over with infinite layers, sort of suppressing it very deep down into the deepest level of the unconscious mind. And basically, most people have lost touch with that. And their mind is basically just locked into that dualistic awareness, of the world. And it's also lost touch with the natural intelligence, because that present moment awareness that's grounded in the nervous system had that connection with natural intelligence. And it knows what is good for it. But we've sort of lost that natural intelligence as we've lost that connection to the body, that sensitivity to the body, and that healing vibration of present moment awareness. And we're depending on the external world for our happiness. How many people have noticed that when a baby isn't crying because of something else, it's oftentimes has a big smile on its face? Anybody out there in computer land ever notice that? You mothers, babies often have big smiles on them. Why is that? Because their mind isn't worrying about who they told a lie to or who they, cheated on or something. Their mind is free from guilt, worry, remorse, and fear. So it's often, smiling because that's its natural, sort of one of its natural features. Happiness, the natural happiness. So, and that is really the beginning of the state of dukkha. Now, dukkha is the word in Pali that means, translated as suffering, but one of the more unknown meanings of dukkha is it means it coming from the root of du, du, or duo, duet, or in French, do, two things. So that means me and the other. That means the mind being trapped in dualistic consciousness is the deepest source of dukkha, or the suffering that arises, because everything that happens to you, you take it personally. I am feeling this, and I want this, or I don't want that, and this is mine. Everything revolves around I, me, and mine. So there's something called the Trinity of the ego, which are the thoughts of I, me, and mine. So, I'm going here, I like this, I don't like that. Look at me, give it to me, and mine, mine, mine. So basically everything that we do in life is centered around this trilogy of I, me, and mine. And when anything threatens that I, me, or mine, threatens what it wants, then that resistance arises, or that anger and aversion arises, because you're threatening that happiness that's based on impermanent things. Now, this comes back to the idea of impermanence. So for most people, their life depends on the pleasure that comes from eating nice food, hearing nice sounds, smelling perfumes. In France, they like perfumes and so on, nice smells. And so I'm not getting hard on France, please. Hope your parents don't get upset. But so anyway, all the five senses, people live for that. Like we were talking about for lunch, some people live to eat, they say, so to satisfy the senses. But all these things are impermanent. Sure, you can have pleasurable feelings, but they don't last very long. As long as the object that caused the pleasurable feeling is there, the pleasurable feeling might go on. But then because it's impermanent, it's going to change. It could be stolen, or it just simply wears out, or we might lose our interest in it even. We can lose our liking for objects, and what we used to like later on could be something we don't like. I'll maybe give an example of that in my life in some other talk. But anyway, I want to come back to this basic train of thought. So basically, we've lost that connection with the natural, innate happiness of being grounded in the present moment. And we've lost that natural intelligence. So people start doing things based on craving. So they start to form bad habits, like maybe getting addicted to sugar. If they like that sweet taste so much. And so they might get to eat too much sugar, then they become overweight, or they might become diabetics, and problems connected with that. Or just food in general, and they might eat too much and then become obese. Or they might start smoking cigarettes or drugs, but cigarettes is a common example. I use that from my own experience. When I was young, a young person in their teens might steal a cigarette from their mother or father, and start smoking, thinking, "Oh, I'm one of the guys," and then get kind of attached to it or addicted to it. And after some time, the body starts going, the body is trying to tell them something, isn't it? But their mind's not listening. And so they go up to light up a cigarette, and their body is trying to tell them unconsciously, "Wait, don't do that, don't do that." And the mind says, "Shut up." You see, so our craving for these pleasurable feelings overrides our natural, innate wisdom, that knowing that these things couldn't be good for you. So that's how we've lost that sensitivity, and then we have to go searching outside of ourselves to heal ourselves. Instead of having that natural intelligence to do what intrinsically we know is right, people get caught up in, again, the whole gamut of unwholesome, unhealthy things simply because it's the easy way out, or everybody else is doing it, or it just feels good. And not understanding that they're becoming inextricably bound up and caught in that web of conditioning and becoming totally dependent on the world of impermanence, and then all of the problems that come with that, the physical problems, of course, of addiction, and of course the mental problems too. And we've lost that connection to the body. We make mistakes. We go rushing, our minds in the future. So you go walking down the street, absorbed in your thoughts, about the past or future, not watching where you are walking. And then you step in a hole in the ground and maybe twist your ankle or fall down and break your arm. That happens to people, doesn't it? It's because you weren't focused in the present moment. You weren't grounded in the present moment, watching what you are doing. Your mind was in the future or it was in the past. It wasn't mindful in the present moment. And almost every accident that you can imagine, think back in your own life even, various things that you've done where you got in an accident that you weren't paying attention. Really, you weren't grounded and centered in the present moment at that time. You were lost in some kind of thought, or you were rushing too quickly with the focus on the object, getting it to the future, and got in an accident. So basically, this is the cause of most of people's problems, is this unmindfulness and having lost that natural connection to the body in the present moment and the natural wisdom that brings. So I've just said all that because this is where the practice of the Dhamma starts. This is where the practice of meditation starts. And actually, the word meditation, it's an English word, of course. I don't know what you call it in French or some other languages, but it's from the prefix MEDI. What other words have the prefix of MEDI? Medicine? Mediation? The media? In meditation? They all imply something similar. So what is meditation? What is medicine? So medicine is a bridge between sickness and health, right? So if we're sick, we try to take medicine that brings us back to health. And a mediator, if two people are arguing, a mediator sits in the middle between them and tries to resolve their differences. And the media is is a connection to common people that are out here between, relaying what's ever happening in the world. They tell us what is happening, right? Because otherwise we wouldn't know what's happening, other parts of the world. So anyway, so meditation implies something in the middle. And basically it means the present moment. So especially in the Buddhist teaching, and especially the teachings of mindfulness that I'll be going to talking about later, it starts with keeping the mind in the middle. That means the middle between the past and the future. So there's these three dualities, the opposites. There's the past on one hand, the future on the other side. Then sickness and health are dualities. And then me and the other are dualities. So meditation is about keeping the mind in the middle, not letting it go out to the extremes. This was actually the Buddhist teaching. The first sermon of the Buddha was about the two extremes. The extremes of being lost either in pleasure or lost in pain, lost in the self, lost in the other, being caught in these dualities and forming our loves and hates with them. When actually the truth is that, this sense of self is something we weren't even born with, and we've created it through the course of our life, and through the course of evolution. but the sense of self and ego is not a part of the natural consciousness. But because most people have lost total touch with that, and no one knows anything about it. And so that's the start of healing in the Dhamma practice. The beginning of meditation starts with learning how to get reconnected to the body. And that's why the main teachings of the Buddha about liberating the mind, freeing the mind from suffering, begins with the body. It's called mindfulness of the body. And the Buddha's teachings about meditation are formed in these what are called the 4 foundations of mindfulness. Mindfulness of the body, mindfulness of feelings, mindfulness of the mind, and mindfulness of mental objects. So these are the objects of what we focus on in meditation. But in the beginning, we start with the body because the body is the easiest thing to notice. And we carry this body around with us all the time. And and whenever we just stop and remember or feel the body, at that moment, the mind kind of is in a kind of the present moment. Not the ultimate present moment, but anyway, at least kind of the present moment. So actually, mindfulness also means to remember. So another meaning of mindfulness is to remember, but specifically to remember the present moment. You know, what is this body doing right now? What is this mind doing right now? So that is the mindfulness. And that it's mindfulness is a self-explanatory term. What is the mind full of, right? Mindful. What is the mind full of right now? It should be full of breathing in. It should be full of breathing out. It should be full of sitting. That means those are the most immediate physical sensations that we're always connected with. At any time of the day, from the moment you're born to the moment you die, the feeling of the body and the sensations in the body are always going on. The feelings in your friend's body or your mother's body or your father's body, they come and go because they're not always around you, or your dog or your cat or anything else. But the feelings in your own body, the sensations are always, that's the only thing that's actually reliable in the world. And that's why we call the body our true home, because that's the only thing that is with you every second of the day from the moment you're born or even within the womb. And the baby can feel the body until the moment you die. This physical body with its sensations is the only reliable thing that acts as our anchor to the present moment, because everything else comes and goes beyond our control. And so that's why the Buddha chose the body and the breathing as the primary object of developing what is called mindful attention and also concentration. So most people's minds are not concentrated. That means they get easily distracted. You know, here in America, and I think in all other places too, young kids, even adults, they have ADD, which is called attention deficit disorder. You know, and they make it into some special disease, but actually everybody has attention deficit disorder because most people can't concentrate. Even adults can't concentrate on one thing very long without intervening thoughts coming and going and getting easily distracted. So, therefore, learning how to develop concentration, mindfulness and concentration, these are the two starting points for learning how to reconnect with our deeper being. It's about coming back home to our true being. In other words, becoming a real human being, in experiencing what being means. That means being able to sit in the present moment and feel the body and breathing, just sitting, breathing, feeling the heart beating, the blood pulsing through the veins. That's your being. That is being in the present moment. And so, again, that's a deeper meaning of the term being, but it's a definite reality. It's something definite we can experience if we just know the proper sort of training. The baby was experiencing that for 9 months in the womb, and shortly after it was born. So it's a matter of we're trying to. It's not that we want to become again to the baby's mind, but we want to be able to gradually learn how to reconnect with that feeling of the present moment awareness, rather than being lost in our thoughts and worrying and fears all the time. So it's an anchor. So basically, the breathing body acts as an anchor to the present moment. So we try to develop that ability to continually remember the sitting, breathing, breathing in, breathing out, is an initial object of concentration. But you'll see how hard it is to do that. Most people can't even count 1 or 2 breaths without the mind wandering off in some thought or going to sleep. So, but as you practice the meditation, practice using the body as one's anchor to the present moment. There's different methods one can use for that. But the simple method that I'm going to be explaining a little bit later, once we get into our meditation shortly, is about that, just learning how to keep bringing the mind back to feel the breathing, feel the body, and learning how to create this new neural pathways of learning how to stay more focused and learning how to see one's thoughts and to let go of them. In meditation, you're able to, as you're watching the breathing, and then maybe a thought of yesterday comes in your mind, but you can notice it. Thought of the past. Okay, let go of that. And you have the ability actually to let go of it, and it then drops out of your mind, and you can stay connected to the breathing longer. Or you feel some itchy, painful feeling, and you can kind of just watch it with some detachment. And because it's impermanent, it will change in a few seconds or disappear, and you don't have to waste your energy trying to scratch it. So you develop this ability just to watch things. First, you watch the breathing, you watch the sitting body, and then you're able to apply that same detached watching to the other various sensory stimulations. So this is just a brief kind of introduction to that practice. Now, I think I've already gone on long enough in this Dhamma talk as a kind of an introduction. And so we're going to now stand up, because people have been sitting for about an hour. Even at home, you might be sitting in a couch, and you might starting to get some discomfort, some parts of the body. And so we're going to stand up, and you can also practice meditation in the standing position, but we're going to stand up basically to stretch our legs, you could say, and do a short standing awareness. And then we're going to sit down for our meditation period. Okay, so we're going to take just a few minutes, little break. If you need to use the restroom, why don't you do that now, or to take a drink of water or something. And then in a couple of minutes, we'll come back. But try to find some area there where you can stand up. For those of you at home, if you have can adjust your screen where you can stand up and have a little space to stand, but at the same time see the screen, that would be useful. Okay, so we'll come back in a few minutes. Friends, so we're going to do a little standing awareness. Get home up there. Stand straight. Relax your arms and hands at the side. Just relax your arms and hands at the sides. Feel your feet pressing the floor. Just try to feel the height and weight of the body over the feet. You just rest your attention behind the eyes. Just feel your eyes in the sockets. And from that point behind the eyes, try to feel the outline of the standing body. Then begin some deep, slow breathing. Try to take 3 seconds to slowly expand your abdomen, rib cage, and upper chest, bringing the air all the way up into feel that expansion of the upper chest. Hold the air in a couple of seconds, slowly breathe out. Just take a few more deep, slow breaths like that, thinking like this to yourself. Breathing in, letting go of the past and future. Breathing out, standing here and now. Breathing in, letting go of the past and future. Breathing out, standing here and now. Breathing in, feeling the whole body. Breathing out, feeling the whole body. Take a few more breaths like that on your own. Just breathing in, standing. Breathing out, standing. Just try to keep remembering that much. Just breathing in, standing. Breathing out, standing. Try to feel those expanding and contracting movements in your abdomen, chest area. Feel the clothing touching the skin. It's the present moment of the body. Breathing in, standing. Breathing out, standing. Every time thoughts come into your mind, just try to let go of them. Just let the thoughts come and go in the back of the mind. Just keep the feeling of the standing, breathing body in the front of the awareness. And just know that you're standing and breathing. Feeling those sensations of the standing, breathing body. Maybe some aches or pains. Maybe some body movement. Breathing in, standing. Breathing out, standing. Just cultivating body-centered present moment awareness. Sort of feel that pleasant feeling underneath, that subtle pulse of life force in the body. Okay, now before we sit down again for a sitting meditation, we're going to just do a couple of simple stretches, because especially in a sitting meditation where you're sitting, then pains are more apt to develop because of the sitting in the sitting position impedes the flow of life force to some parts of the body, so the tendency to get sleepy or develop more pains in the legs and so on come when you're sitting. So we do a couple of exercises that hope to minimize that. So again, take a couple of deep, slow breaths. We coordinate these movements with that slow, deep breathing. You can just watch your screen to follow, lead you through these simple movements. So on the next in-breath, raise the arms over the head, interlock the fingers, turn the palms up, straighten the arms, and stretch your head back, arch back a little bit, feel the sensations. On the out breath, turn the palms down, touch the top of the head. And repeat it 2 more times. In breath, turn the palms up, straighten the arms, stretch the head back, bend back, stretch upward. Out breath, touch the head. And the 3rd time, hold that upward stretch longer. Or bend back a little more. Release the fingers on the out breath, arms back to the sides. Just relax. Just close the eyes again. Just stay focused inside. Try to feel the sensations of the clothing touching the skin, the sensations in your hands and fingers. If you can't feel that, feel the feet pressing the floor, anything to remind yourself of the body here and now. Oh yes, standing, standing. So just sort of watching the standing body. And if any thoughts come into the mind, just sort of watch them. Oh, thinking. A thought of this or a thought of that, let go of it. Just keep feeling the body. Those thoughts vanish. Okay, on the next in breath, push up on the toes while raising the arms over the head in this way. But don't join the hands. Keep the hands about 6 inches apart and stretch up. On the out breath, come back down, arms to the side, heels to the floor. Use the breath to help lift up the body. In breath. Stretch. Out. Once more, in. Out. Relax. Let's close the eyes, focus inside. Feel the subtle sensations, maybe the increased heartbeat, the clothing touching the skin. Okay, we're going to do just one last simple exercise, the head turning from right to left. So on an in-breath, turn your head to the right as far as you comfortably can. And look over your right shoulder. On the out-breath, turn 180 degrees back to the left. Look over the left shoulder. in-breath back to the right. Concentrate into the neck vertebra. Out breath left. In breath right. Out breath left. Once more to each side. Now on the in-breath, let the head stop in the middle. Just relax. Keep the eyes closed. Try to feel that subtle life force sensation. Subtle pulsations, very prickly sensations. Clothing's touching the skin. They're all just present moment vibration. And the awareness of them is the present moment awareness, here and now. The vibration of being in the present, without thoughts of the future or past. Just relaxed in the present moment. Okay, friends, so now let's come back to our seats and get ready for the sitting awareness. For those of you at home, just try to sit comfortably, but keeping your back straight. You keep the back of your head and spine in a straight line. Just place your hands either one on top of the other, somewhere in your lap, or resting on your legs. Just gently close the eyes. Just bring your attention down to feel where the buttocks press the seat. Just imagine the weight of the body pressing on the seat. and mentally feel the way the legs are bent underneath, where they're bent at the knee, and feeling the feet tucked underneath or where they touch the floor. Start to feel some sensations in your feet or toes. Basically just feel that solid contact of the body with the chair or the floor. Just remind yourself of sitting, the body here and now, sitting on the floor. So let the mind sit with it. And also feel your hands and fingers. Try to feel the subtle pulsation in your hands or fingers. Feel the outline of your thumbs or fingers where they press together or touch the body. Just remind yourself, sitting. And feel the weight of the arms hanging from the shoulders. Relax the shoulders. Feel where the clothing touches the skin of the shoulders, the arms, the chest. Just remember sitting. Now feel the head balanced on top of the neck. And keep the chin lifted up level, parallel with the floor. Just feel your lips touching together. Feel the dryness or the moistness sensation in the lips. Feel the tongue inside the mouth. Feel where the tongue may touch your teeth or the inside of the mouth. Might move your tongue a few times. Feel that touch sensation. And just feel the skin stretched over the front of the face. Many little subtle prickly sensations. And feel the eyes. Sort of notice the subtle eye movement. And just rest the attention there, feeling the eyes. Sort of watching the eyes that are in your head. Again, remember sitting, sitting. And from that point behind the eyes, let the awareness kind of open up to feel the rest of the body, like using a wide angle lens on a camera. From that point behind the eyes, a natural awareness point, you should be able to feel the rest of the head, shoulders, the arms. It's like panning a movie camera around, see different objects, can move the attention down to the body, feel the clothing touching the skin, the shoulders, arms, stomach, chest, feel the hands and fingers, the legs tucked underneath the toes. And if you can, kind of just go back up through the body in the same way from your feet, feeling your legs, knees, hands and fingers, arms, clothing touching the skin of the chest, shoulders, feeling the head on top. And again, just resting the attention behind the eyes, feel that outline of the whole body, like in one glance. Should be able to feel that vague kind of outline of the sitting body, not in details, just a general sense of sitting, sitting. That's the internet connection. Cells the body from all those different places, feeding into the web, giving the idea of a sitting body. It's the present moment. And now tuning back into the breathing process. Again, try to take a few deep, slow breaths to help feel it. Hold the air in the lungs for 2 seconds. And slowly breathe out, like we were doing in the yoga session. Just cultivate this basic mindfulness. Breathing in, letting go of the past and future. Breathing out, sitting here and now. Breathing in, letting go of the past and future. Breathing out, sitting here and now. Breathing in, feeling the whole body. Breathing out, feeling the whole body. Now to develop a more continuous concentration on the breathing. Going to count the breaths from 1 to 10. I'll do the counting for you. Just try to follow that. Try to continue taking some slightly deeper breaths if you can. With the next expanding in breath, mentally count 1. Feel the brief pause. With the contracting out breath, also count 1. Feel the last bit of air go out of the lung. And the next in breath, 2. Out breath, 2. In breath, 3. Out breath, 3. In breath, 4. Out breath, 4. In breath, 5. Out breath, 5. In 6. Out 6. In 7. Out 7. In 8. Out 8. In 9. Out 9. In 10. Out 10. Now discontinue the counting. Let the breath return to its uncontrolled, shorter, irregular rhythm. But continue to feel it. Sort of feel like you're a scientist sitting in the laboratory looking down through a microscope. A microscope is focused awareness. Now and feel the stomach, rib cage, chest area. Listening for, feeling the subtle sensations of the clothing rubbing against the skin of the abdomen, rib cage, or chest. As it just naturally expands and contracts. Just follow that with close attention. Just remembering in sitting, out sitting, over and over and over again. In sitting, out sitting. It's cultivating that natural connection to the breathing process, the sitting body, the present moment. In sitting, out sitting. It's breath by breath, moment by moment. Try to notice the 4 phases of each breath cycle. Expanding in breath, the brief pause. The contracting out breath, the brief pause. Just knowing when the breath is coming in and knowing when the breath is going out. It's the mind's natural intelligence, knowing what is going on inside the body. Especially be alert for the pauses between the breaths. That's the missing link. The pause connects the in-breath to the out-breath. Don't notice the pause, the mind will escape into thoughts. You won't catch the next out-breath or in-breath. Just turn up the power of the mental microscope. If you're having more difficulties to concentrate, you can go back to just counting the breaths from 1 to 10 by yourself. Calm down your thoughts. Otherwise, just try to see how each breath is different. Sometimes longer, sometimes shorter. Sometimes the in-breath is longer than the out-breath. The out-breath is longer than the in-breath. The pauses between the breaths are longer or shorter. being able to notice all those differences is a deep level of concentration, requires deep concentration and awareness. Noticing how that breathing process is changing every moment. At the same time, be aware that this breathing process is occurring within the larger body, sitting around it. All around the breathing is the sitting body, also with sensation. So even while feeling the breathing, you might notice some sensations on your head, arm, feet, just coming and going. You don't have to look for them, they automatically appear in the focused awareness. Breathing process and the other bodily processes are running concurrently. Be alert for thoughts trying to sneak up into the mind, steal your attention away. Just as you observe the breath coming in, notice a thought coming into the mind, just thinking. Just let go of it. Don't dwell on it. It just vanishes. Stay connected with breathing in, sitting, breathing out, sitting. Breath by breath, moment by moment. Anytime you're feeling drowsy or too many thoughts, take a few more deep, slow breaths to re-energize the bloodstream with oxygen. To help stay connected to the body. And with each out breath, just allow the body and mind to relax more and more into the here and now, the present moment. And even if thoughts are still coming and going in the mind, it doesn't matter. Just don't get lost into them. Don't lose that connection to the body. If you maintain that connection to the body, the thoughts will just vanish. Just be alert when any unpleasant sensations, like some itches or other body irritations, pull at the mind. Just try to watch those irritating sensations as they just well up, change, come to a peak, diminish, disappear. Maintaining that connection to the breathing, sitting and breathing. All those different sensations just arise and vanish, come and go through the breathing body awareness. Even pains are just vibrations within that breathing body awareness. Breathing in, sitting. Breathing out, sitting. Sensations come and go. Pleasure and pain come and go. Sounds come and go. Perceptions, thoughts, emotions come and go. Thoughts of I, me, or mine come and go. These are all just the constant flow of the impermanence of body, mind, world phenomenon, in their play of impermanence, constant change, nothing remaining the same for more than 2 moments. Except awareness. The present moment awareness. Just as a security camera is observing everything coming in and out of your house, moving through your house. It's not going anywhere. Runs 24/7. So does present moment awareness. Natural, constant vibration deep in the consciousness. If we lose that connection to the present moment awareness, to the breathing body, and the mind gets easily dragged here and there, dragged underneath the waves of conflicted thoughts and emotions, push and pull between desire and aversion, greed and hatred, me and others. Those are all the waves of the mind. That just come and go through the constant backdrop of knowing. It's connected to the nervous system. Mind resting in the middle. Between the extremes. And that's meditation. That connection to the present moment is the lifeline, or the life preserver, or the anchor to that present moment. So just develop that connection to your true home, where you were born. With the body. For those of you that are tuning in over the web, and try to continue the meditation on your own if you can. We're going to sign out of this Zoom program now, and can meet tomorrow at the same time. For those meditating here in-house in the retreat, also just continue cultivating concentration and mindfulness in the breathing body.